Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. We're from the R2 studio here. And now then, this morning, the talk of the town must be the so-called protest that was held in Colombo yesterday. To discuss that and perhaps a little bit more on the people's inconveniences, we are joined this morning by Professor Rajeeva Wijesinghe and by Mr. Kesaralal Gunasekare. Gentlemen, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Now then, what's your take, Professor? What are these protests all about? Should the people be so inconvenienced?
Well, as you know, there's a lot of inconvenience inherent in the whole process of government. I don't think this was particularly inconvenient because a lot of notice was given. Many officers, like Lake House, closed early. And although the buses were not there, nearly 50,000 rallying shows that the people felt a real need to make a point. I think it is important that the government realizes quite how unpopular it is. Now, you told me when I mentioned this earlier that that had been shown in February, but I don't think the government has noticed. And I think the particular reason which Mahinda Rajapaksha began by saying, according to the island, is that the speaker still continues to perpetrate this lunacy of having the TNA in the post of leadership of the opposition.
But
now, that is manifestly wrong because...
But Professor, the people of the so-called joint opposition were not elected on a ticket called the joint opposition. They were part of the SLFP and
UPFA.
UPFA. Faraz, get things correct.
Let's say that why don't they all resign, which is what they ought to be doing, and then contest all over again?
Because the government will not have any elections.
But they seem to want the best of all worlds.
Oh, rubbish, Faraz, for God's sake, look at the history. They were nominated as members of the UPFA because Maitripala Sirisena decided to contest with the UPFA and gave nomination to Mahinda Rajapaksha and appointed him to lead that campaign because that was a way of maximizing the vote. And I think Maitripala Sirisena would be the first to accept that a lot of the votes to the UPFA were people who were in favor of Mahinda Rajapaksha. Now, what the president did, because he panicked and then started making very negative noises about Mahinda Rajapaksha, which is no way to lead a party. You're undermining your own party. The second thing he did was 2 days before the election, he sacked wrongly, when he had no business to do, the secretary of the UPFA, Susil Premjayat. But in fact, he realized that he had done something illegal because...
What's all this got to do with... The point is...
The point I'm trying to make, Faraz, will you let me finish?
Yes, but they're all from the same party.
Exactly, but the majority of those elected from that date onwards have been in the opposition and not supportive of the government. Maitripala Sirisena, having sacked Susil Premjayat illegally, then actually...
Illegally according to their constitution.
According to their constitution. And he himself acknowledged it because he actually got Susil to sign the national list. Under pressure. Because, of course, the maneuver succeeded to the extent, and this is why Maitripala Sirisena, despite all he says about Ranil Wickremesinghe in private, ensured that the UNP got more votes than the UPFA. Now, not only the majority of those UPFA, a majority of those UPFA, Faraz, you're not letting me finish.
We must take this question, it is very important, from a member of the public who says, if the joint opposition wants the opposition leadership role, then they must leave the SLFP. In Parliament, what is recognized is the written law and not the interpretation from different perspectives. What do you have to say about that, Kesaralal Gunasekare?
That's perfectly correct, because I feel that whatever said and done, the speaker has to accept one thing, that these are members of the UPFA. Now, the UPFA Central Committee decided to join hands with the UNP. Whether it is right or wrong is a different question. But that is a decision that was taken by the Central Committee. Once the Central Committee decides, everybody has to join and fall in line. Now, if somebody says, no, we are not part of the UPFA Central Committee decision and we would want to be independent, yes, certainly they can do that. But still, the UPFA board is still around their neck. That is one thing that they have to understand. As far as the Speaker is concerned, Speaker cannot recognize somebody saying, look here, we are from a different party. No, the Speaker has to go by the law.
But yet the Speaker has allocated them time and so on.
You have to, because you are a member of Parliament. Member of Parliament is entitled to speak. He is entitled to speak. So he has to accommodate them.
Kesaralal, you're talking absolute rubbish. If the Speaker's position is that the head of the UPFA is Mahinda Amaravira, then all time, etc., is allocated by Mahinda Amaravira. So if he has recognized the right of this group led by Dinesh Gunawardena, have a particular status and allocate time, he is then violating the principle that he claims in public. Now the reason he violates it...
May I correct you?
Can I
yes.
Can I just go?
But at the same time, I must correct you as well.
No, correct me.
Yeah. What the joint opposition did at the beginning is, they informed the Speaker that they are not being allocated time by the UPFA, and they wanted the Speaker to give a ruling on that, which the Speaker said, look here, you are members of Parliament, therefore I will recognize you. Individually, I will give you a time to speak. That is exactly what has happened.
That is precisely what I said. The Speaker has recognized the reality.
No. The Speaker has recognized a member of Parliament has a right to speak.
No. The Speaker has recognized the fact that the so-called theory that they are under the UPFA
it's not the theory.
Has to be superseded by the simple fact that they exist.
We say
they exist and represent a large proportion of the people of this country. Now, for us to go back to the main point, what my father told the Speaker in 1977 is the leadership of the opposition should go to the alternative government, because then that is one way of letting off steam. In a context in which that option is not available, the joint opposition has to move to extra parliamentary tactics. Now it is remarkable that it was a peaceful protest. The only violence, according to the newspapers, is that when protesters were attacked by members of UNP goons. And this is all very reminiscent, if you remember, Faraz, you're probably a bit young to remember the days of the 80s, when all the goons, you know, Ranis, Gonawalasuri, all that lot, attacked any protest. Now, it is certainly true that in the last years of the Mahinda Rajapaksha government as well, there was unnecessary violence. You may recall that I was one of the first who wrote a petition about that. But that doesn't make it correct for this government to pretend that the people of this country are supportive of an opposition led by Sambandhan, a chief whip Anurakumara Disanayaka, both of whom actually engaged in the really rather appalling tactic of allowing provincial council elections to be postponed and thus denying democracy the constitutional provisions of the provincial council amendment. And in such a context, when these two forces are supporting a government that has long outlived both its usefulness and its capacity for development, it is time the Speaker actually recognized the reality of the situation. And yesterday's protest was a way of making that point clear. It was abundantly clear. You know, people can measure numbers. I just saw in the Daily Mirror 5 comments by government ministers, which are really appalling. Ranjit Mandara claims that there were not even 25,000 people. Everyone, both of you all who
there's about 15,000 in front of Lake House, about 14,000.
Yeah, and you told me you thought that there were there was a report saying 45,000.
Yes.
Ajit Pereira says they were shouting like headless chickens.
Right.
What does he do? I mean, he shouts.
But they all do the same thing.
Then Ruam Vijayawardena says that it was a farce.
Right, that's his opinion.
Then Nalin Bandara says the rulers are in streets, supporters on streets. Right. At least, unlike in the case of Ranil Wickramasinghe, now who pays for these streets? Ranil, of course, as you know, lives off the party and lives off the government. He's never paid for anything in his life on his own. So therefore, this type of response, instead of saying the protest was for particular factors which we can combat, is personal insults.
What about you, Kesaralal? What did you think about these inconveniences the growing inconveniences on the public.
If you study the JO since they started these antics, every 8 or to 1 year they start this operation and say Janabale, Kolabata and all those things. Why? Because they want to show the people, look, we are not let them know. You won't believe, yesterday the former president Mahinda Rajapaksha spoke and he said, "Thawa vadikal nogos api bale allana." But that was not the message that were conveyed, that they were going to topple the government and that the President Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe are already packing their bags. That was the message that was conveyed. But he said, "Thawa vadikal nogos." This is a statement that he has been continuously making from 2016 onwards. He said once, he said, "Thawa eka poyai." What he referred was Vesak Poya, then subsequently he corrected himself. Now, he says again another Vesak Poya, that means 1 year. So the question is very simple.
Why is
they realize that their campaign has lost its intensity. Therefore, to spur it up, they need to have something of this nature. So you bring people to Colombo. I mean, you can bring in any party, even the JP can bring people to Colombo. 40,000-50,000 is not a difficult task. It's not a difficult task. You can bring.
But it shows the amount of money that's lying around.
Yeah, the question is this, to bring is not a difficult task. But what I say is, I mean, if they want, in this day of age where technology is so advanced, everything will be highlighted in the newspapers and the media. If they have it somewhere else, Colombo, the hub. The whole aim is to completely disrupt the whole operation of Colombo.
If this was an attempt to a copycat sort of attempt on what the Reds did in Bangkok, it was a poor performance.
Absolutely poor performance. Absolutely poor. And the message was very clear. They said, look here, we are going to topple this government and we'll be there until the government goes home. But they have gone home, the government is still there.
Do you think this has all
it's
been...
a message.
This has all been accelerated by the establishment of the trial at bar, the Special High Court?
Because if you follow the people who are part of the joint operation, you will notice that 32 of them are having allegations which will be taken up. So they realize time is moving very fast and they need to act. They want to ensure that this government is brought down as quickly as possible before they are somewhere else. That's exactly what they plan. So I feel in that context only they are operating, and it is very clear that it was an absolute farce.
And Professor Wijesinghe, did you think that this was an exercise on their part to sort of drop GR and prop up NR?
No, I don't think so at all. You see, there are, I think, some very clear factors at the moment. One is the disruption that's happening without the JO. If you look at today's papers, the Financial Times says business confidence dips to a 12-month low. The rupee, as you know, is now down to 163.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no development taking place. And you talk to anybody, there is a great sense of despair and malaise at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, who will be the main opposition candidate next year is not something that one even needs to speculate on at this point. There is a very strong move in favor of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and I think if he got over the legal question, he would certainly be the candidate.
But yesterday
unless
he said,
Mahinda Rajapaksa is able to stand himself. I think there's a general recognition.
But yesterday he said that all the people only want MR, and that, so effectively he counts himself out.
No, that is, you see, if everyone has said that if MR can stand, and that is a constitutional question, I rather feel that I'm glad they're trying to settle it. But I think constitutionally, it is not very clear that MR can stand, and I suspect the courts may find against him. If they don't, the path is clear for him to stand, and no one will contest it. But if MR cannot stand, I think the whole force that is behind opposition will want a proven person like Gotabaya.
Look, this is a great question or statement even from a viewer. It's to no one in particular, but you can both comment on it. Shame on them. This is all about the protest. Shame on them. Kids couldn't go to school, businesses had to close, and in already hard times the general public lost. If a bunch of drunken stragglers is all they could drum up, they should all be put up to pasture. Credit to the government that instead of being banned and met with tear gas and bullets, they had extra water and ambulances to treat 100 plus drunken revelers.
Well, I think that gentleman has forgotten that the government tried to ban the rally and all the courts found against it.
What do you say? All the businesses had to shut down, the small-time people trying to make their 100 and 200 rupees a day. The people selling Veraloo and all these the little street-side vendors.
That is why I say, for us, it's time that all parties realize that when they want to have a protest, they can always choose an alternative location. Because technology advancement is such that even if you have it in Kalutara, everything will come in the newspapers, press, media, everything. So it is immaterial that you have to come to Colombo.
Is this an attempt to further cripple the already crippled economy?
It is. It is very clear.
They
wanted from day one the government to declare it a holiday. Why? Why should they want it to be declared a holiday? Because they want to cripple and they want to give the wrong message. It's very clear. And the more these things go on, the more the business community loses confidence. The more these things go on.
How do you think this will, internationally, how would investors look at it, do you think, Professor?
Well, I think you already have a situation where none of the investment that Ranil Wickremesinghe proclaimed would come to him in 2015 has come in. The only investment that's happening is Chinese, and because the Chinese don't forgive, the terms they used to give the Rajapaksha government are now much worse.
Yeah.
As you know, they have got the Hambantota port on a 99-year lease, which was ridiculous. And whether that was either the Chinese putting the screws on or Malik Samarasekera being dishonest, I don't know. But that is the only investment that is going on here. There is much talk of other investment. You remember the Volkswagen factory, the tire factory in Kalutara. All those have never happened. So clearly there is a lack of investor confidence.
But in all of this, people are forgetting, and this is reacting to another viewer, in all this, what's happening is that the big picture seems to be
obscured.
Yes, and that is that Ranil Wickremesinghe's shameful responses yesterday in Parliament about the bond is disgraceful. He and his mate, Malik Samarasekera, maintain that what the central bank is holding of perpetual treasuries is more than enough to cover the losses, and therefore not a red cent was lost to the state. This is complete and utter rubbish, because the losses to the EPF alone was 8.5 plus billion, 8.5 plus billion with a B. That was the losses just to the EPF.
The damage to the economy?
And what about the damage to the economy? The fine for perpetual treasuries would, for robbing EPF, in short, in essence, would be twice if it ever reaches the magisterial court, right? So that's 17 billion plus the 8.5, that's 25 billion. Malik Samarasekera and Ranil Wickremesinghe don't know to add up. They don't know to add up. Well, what do you have to say about this? It's completely rubbish that perpetual treasuries only ever stole 12 billion. That's nonsense.
That's nonsense.
That's the amount that's stuck there. They haven't even looked at the bond too.
They have still not done a full-scale investigation or forensic audit with regard to all the transactions, which is a must, and the effect on the economy is much more severe, which has to be understood by all parties concerned.
Now then, Mr. Wickremesinghe is completely and utterly misleading the public. And what can be done, Professor Wijesinghe? He's lying through his teeth.
I think the real sadness is that people like Kesaralal, who I believe support President Sirisena rather than Ranil Wickremesinghe, do not have the guts to tell Sirisena, get rid of this man. You see, this government is floundering because immediately after it was elected on a portfolio, on a message of abandoning corruption. Corruption took place on a massive scale, as you have pointed out. And no one believes the lies that Ranil and Manik say. And the longer Sirisena continues to defend these crooks, the more he is sinking. But what is really sad is there are still people who claim to be UPFA who are supporting them. I mean, Kesar just told me that the UPFA group in the Hila Mount Lavinia actually wanted to support the UNP candidate for mayor now. So Netta Ranasinghe is not a bad woman. But the feeling of the public at large is that a change is necessary, and Maithripala Sirisena still has the power to make that change if he only uses the constitution properly. And he is not doing that. He is allowing himself to sink, and that is why the point you just made makes me fear that even he, I know the UNP is collecting as much money as possible and it will run as soon as possible. But Maithripala Sirisena shouldn't do that. The man may not have a brain, but he has a heart.
Ranil Wickremesinghe, this so-called Mr. Clean and all that nonsense that accompanies his blessed name, is completely and utterly misleading. He's lying, Kesaralal, he's lying. Why aren't you telling the president that this man is lying through his teeth? Why aren't you telling him that?
No, the question is very simple. What is the alternative?
What? So this is the price that
no,
we are paying?
No, I don't say so. I don't say so. The president instigated an inquiry, he appointed a commission of inquiry, he did everything that was possible. He was treated with kid gloves by the Attorney General. He came and questioned him. Why wasn't Dapula de Oliveira and Yasanta Kodagode allowed to carry on with the cross-examination?
That was a disgrace, Kesara, and the president should have known better.
That was disgraceful. And the Prime Minister comes in there. And it's obvious. We had Maitri Gunaratne and Gomindasri pointing out that the Attorney General will have to retire when he's 60. But should he join the Supreme Court, he can have another 5 years. The insinuation was clear that this man might end up on the bench of the Supreme Court, and who knows, even Chief Justice. Isn't that some sort of conflict? Isn't that explain why Prime Minister was... And this is not the first time he went to some presidential commission. Let's not forget about the Batalanda Commission. He went there. And why do they all get upset when we mention Batalanda? Why?
For us, in fairness, I must say that I accept the fact that the bond was a big disaster.
It's not
I accept it. It's a disaster.
It's robbery.
It's a disaster.
It's a robbery.
I would term it robbery because it's an economy that has taken a beating. And as far as possible, those people who were involved must be brought to justice.
And the president now wants to hang them.
It's very clear.
The president wants to hang them.
So
do you think that the president is right in saying that people like that should be hanged?
No, the question is this: what he says, what he meant was.
What about you? What do you think?
People who have stolen public money must be dealt with severely. That's
How
what he
much
meant.
more public than the EPF?
I know.
And he said they should be hanged. He used the word hanged.
You must understand that he's also reliant on government agencies. He's reliant on the central bank. He's reliant on the Attorney General's Department. He's reliant on the CSCS.
Do you think,
SEC, everything.
Professor Rajiv, that Ranil Wickremesinghe should be hung?
No, I have written very clearly that I think that would be wrong. But what I suggested in 2015, and that is why I was so disappointed in this government that, unlike other people, actually helped to bring into power.
Yeah.
I said, do not go for revenge. Go for restorative justice. Get the money back. I don't think Ranil should be hanged, but I think, for instance, there should be legislation to confiscate his properties, leave him enough to live on. Luckily, his wife has simple tastes, unlike other leaders' wives, like Maithripala's wife, who's also very simple. So they are assets to their husbands. Confiscate the property, Archana Mahendra's family property. All that can be taken to compensate for these billions. You don't need only to take the perpetual treasuries. You have to have a process. It's a bit like the Thai law I recommended many years ago.
They've issued 45,000 checks. Thai law, let's talk about that then. Thaksin Shinawatра's sister, Yingluck, she got 5 years for a scheme that she introduced that went wrong about the rice, buying in rice. She got 5 years. What on earth are they doing here? Why is this Ranil Wickremesinghe still hanging on to his favoured boys like Malik and Sagala and Akila and so on.
I wouldn't describe Malik as a boy. I think he's one of the lads.
Right.
For
And
us,
he is actually, you know, unlike Sagala and Akila, who I don't think are irredeemably corrupt.
Yeah.
I think Malik is one of that little group with Ranil who's making money hand over fist and, you know, pretending it's for the party, but, you know, one for the party, one for me. One for the party, one for me. It's a disgrace, those, you know, that Royal College Mafia.
Royal College Mafia. Well, what can we do? What do you say, Kesaralal? Why is this country allowing them to get away with it?
I feel we need to understand whether it is a politician or a government officer who's involved in corrupt practices must be brought to justice, and they must be held accountable. The question here in Sri Lanka is nobody is held accountable. That's the biggest problem in this country. Nobody is held accountable. I mean, if people, we are moving towards that. We are quietly moving towards that, and that has to be established.
How come in Parliament yesterday, the Prime Minister, responding to the question by the JVP, how come he was reading from a prepared script? How come? Do you think it was all fixed? He seemed to be having a note. How can he know what was...
He can have notes for us.
Well, he can have notes.
He can have notes.
It looked like he was...
He's entitled to have notes.
But he looked like he was reading verbatim.
No.
Yes, he looked
and you
like
have to remember that this, you know, I would accept Sunil Handunetti, but the rest...
somebody else has noticed this.
I would accept Sunil Handunetti, but you know, the JVP, they are paying for the perks that they have got. Chief Government Whip with 6 people in Parliament. What a complete joke. You know, you know, let's talk about parliamentary traditions. If you appoint a group as leader of the opposition, that group appoints the Chief Government Whip. What Karuja Asurya did is, following his master's instructions, divided the spoils so that the genuine opposition to this government, which got a massive vote even though it was perverted in August 2015, was left out, and each of these other parties was given its little reward. But where in the world you have a Chief Government Whip who's not from the same party as the leader of the opposition? Anura Disanayake has been given his reward, and he is working to earn his reward by playing into Ranil Wickremesinghe's hands, even on the no
Somebody
confidence
is responding.
May I respond?
Yeah,
may I respond?
certainly.
I fundamentally feel that after Mrs. Sirimao Bandaranayake, this is the first occasion after so many years that 2 major parties have come together. In that context, you need to understand.
When did they come together? Under Sirimao?
No. Earlier it was. They were the CP.
Those are not the 2 major parties.
No. But
this claims to be a national government. It is nothing of the sort.
In this situation, where if the major parties really get together, you need to understand that they will be having more than 150 members on their side.
Yeah.
So the opposition will naturally be a very few. Yeah. That has to be understood.
Well, what's your point?
My point is very clear, very simple. Here is a situation, here is a scenario which has never been there in the past, and hence the election of the leader of the opposition naturally will have to be from the minority.
It's not an election. The speaker made an appointment. There was no election.
It's not from the majority.
There was no election.
And
Kesaralal, please remember.
Once a leader of the opposition is elected.
I want to say this. It's happening right here, even in our studio. Ranil Wickremesinghe is getting away with it. He and his boys are getting away with it. We must focus. We must all collectively focus on Ranil Wickremesinghe being an absolute fraud. He is nothing but a fraud. And he's got people like Karu and Sampantan and all that, all on his blessed side.
And Anwar Kumar as well.
And Anwar Kumar as well. Do you know, we are all missing the trees for the woods here. Ranil Wickremesinghe, this fraud at the central bank was designed. It was all done before. All they had to do was to win the election. And Maithripala Sirisena, God bless him, he won. And so they put it into action. And today we are paying at least 3% more thanks to that decision. And Arjuna Mahendran is living in Singapore. And the Prime Minister. Do you believe that the Prime Minister doesn't know where his lifelong friend is or is not? Do you believe that, Kesaralal?
And don't forget, he promised
that
he would come back to face trial. You remember he promised that.
He once upon a time said,
may I respond with this statement?
Yeah, God.
In the present day of age where the former president says he doesn't know somebody called Keith Noah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
No, he didn't say that. He said he couldn't recollect the telephone call.
He said Keith Noah, he doesn't understand, he doesn't know.
Well, I mean, no, he didn't say that.
You know.
He said he couldn't recollect the telephone
Look, there are people who found 165 million lying in a safe. They didn't know about it.
For us, I'm with you. People who do wrong must be brought to book. I'm with you on that. We all are on that.
Can I ask you a very simple question? You need to answer yes or no because we'll be running out of time. Should Ranil Wickremesinghe face trial for his dereliction of duty as the minister in charge of the central bank? Yes or no?
No, the question is you must understand that I must reply. Now, I fundamentally feel that up to now, there has not been a forensic audit of the entire episode.
Well, if that is done, Dr. Kumaraswamy, I don't know what you're doing.
If that is done, everything will come to light. Everything will come to light.
Do you think,
on those...
What about you? Can I ask you the question? Do you think Ranil Wickremesinghe should be held accountable, should be prosecuted?
Of course he should be held accountable. Of course he should be held accountable. And there is ample evidence because this totally illegal thing that Ajura Mahendran did was on Ranil's advice and Ranil has admitted it. And Ranil
should he be locked up?
No, I don't believe in, as I said, retributive justice. I think he should pay recompense to the country for what he has caused the country to lose. I'm not a believer. I have always said restorative justice is what this country needs, not revenge.
Kesaralal Gunasekare, Professor Rajeeva Wijesinghe, thank you very much for being on Newsline. And whether he, as in the Prime Minister, should be locked up or not is
not the question.
Is a question that Kesaralal Gunasekare couldn't answer.
I didn't say I did not answer.
No, you dodged. I said Professor Rajeeva Wijesinghe his answer was absolutely crystal clear. So
no, but you need to establish through it's an inquiry.
Well, yes, everything needs to be. We'll have inquiries for a year and
forensic
more.
Inquiry. That has to be
that's about it. But the people will speak, of course, and the people, when they speak, Ranil Wickremesinghe will find out a few home truths. Until that day, keep smiling, Sri Lanka. The sun's shining, the trees are swaying, the beaches are still superbly, wonderfully unexplored. Take care. God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.